What's happening, everybody, and welcome back to the Chaplaincy on the Go podcast. I'm your host, Josh Zorhoff, and I'm a teaching pastor and a counselor in the West Michigan area. And this podcast is brought to you by the Fearless family of churches and my good friends at Care Portal. Did you know that the number one request for families in West Michigan that reach out to Care Portal are beds? They need beds for children. And if you have a bed downstairs in your basement, maybe it's one from when your kids were younger, or it's just kind of sitting there. Did you know that could actually help a child stay connected with their family and out of the foster care system? It's just one of the ways that Care Portal makes it easy to help families in need in West Michigan. And so we want to encourage you, if you are wanting to get involved in helping children in your area stay connected with their forever family, we would love for you to go to careportal.org and learn more about ways that you can connect. I'm excited to continue on this conversation as we talk about mental health, and we talk about the ways that emotional health and mental health collide with the workspace. We had our last conversation on conflict management, and it was really a part one conversation of learning how to handle conflict, how to understand conflict, how conflict works. But today we want to get solution focused. We want to get really practical and talk a little bit about how we can deal with conflict and even resolve conflict when conflict arises in our relationships. And so I want to walk through some really simple strategies with you. Things that you can do right now as you're listening to this podcast or as you're watching that can help you when you are, in fact, in conflict. And I want to remind us a little bit of the previous conversation. One, conflict doesn't go away. It doesn't resolve itself. There are ways to handle conflict well, and there are also ways to handle conflict poorly. And you want to be aware that conflict will build over time, and it can send us into a negative spiral. And so these are some strategies that can help stop that spiral and put you in a place for success when you are dealing with conflict. The first thing that you want to do when you are in conflict, when someone comes to you and you've got a problem with what they said, or they've got a problem with what you said, or you're feeling tension between you and your spouse, or maybe you and your kids, or you're feeling tension with another person, the first thing to do is to force your tongue down. Right now, as you're listening to this, I just want you to take the tongue and force it down into the bottom of your mouth. If you're watching, it's like this, okay? Or forcing it down as low as it can go. When you force your tongue down into the bottom of your jaw, that forces the muscles in your neck to relax. One of the main areas where we hold tension, specifically when we're under stress or duress, is in our jaw or in our neck or in our shoulders. This is why when people are driving and they've had a long day, their shoulders ride up and you kind of have to force them down. It's also one of the reasons why people grind their teeth when they sleep. Our bodies physically hold on to tension. So when we're in conflict, one of the physical signs that we're in conflict is like we start to tense up right in our jaw. Well, forcing the tongue down into the bottom of your mouth, down into like the jaw area, will actually tell your body, hey, I'm safe. It's okay. I'm going to be all right. I don't have to get really tense right now. So the first thing you want to do is put your tongue down. That's going to relax all of the muscles in your body. It's going to relax the muscles in your jaw and in your neck. That's exactly what you want. What you don't want is to hold on to tension when you are in conflict, because that's only going to build, that's only going to escalate, that's only going to ensure that you're going to stay in that reactive mode. So you want to trick your body into saying, I'm okay. Maybe even when you don't feel like you're okay, you can tell your body, hey, listen, I'm in control here. You're not in control of me. My emotions are not in control of me. I'm in control, and I'm going to force myself to relax. I'm going to put that tongue down. The second thing that you want to do, so tongue down. Number 2, breathe out. Breathe out. This is counterintuitive. A lot of people will say things like, hey, when you're really frustrated, just take a deep breath. It's going to be okay. First of all, the last thing you want to do when you are in a tense situation is take a deep breath. Now, I know I've talked about breathing on the episode before and in previous conversations. And so breathing is really important. You do want to have time to take a deep breath. But if you are in high conflict, the last thing you want to do is fill your lungs with oxygen, because that's going to tell your body, hey, I'm ready for a fight. When you are in a conflict situation, you want to remove air from your lungs. You want to breathe out. When you breathe out, you're starving your body of the energy that it needs to keep on fighting. So you want to put your tongue down and you want to breathe out like this. Long, slow, forcing as much oxygen out as you can, as much as you can stand, almost to the point where it kind of forces you to take a breath back in. You want to keep doing that, just expelling oxygen from your lungs, because when you do that, you're telling your body, I don't need to fight. I don't need to power up. I don't need to be strong right now. What I need to do is be in a clear headspace. So you want to put your tongue down. You want to breathe out. And then you want to put your palms up. So I know this may sound silly as I say it, because even as you're looking at me, seeing somebody with their palms up looks kind of weird. But palms up is the universal symbol for I am not a threat to you. And again, we're talking about how we can de-escalate conflict, how we can handle conflict well. Tongue down, breathe out, palms up. Palms up says, I'm here to receive. Palms up says, I am here to listen. Palms up says, I'm here to connect with you. And I mean, I'm not a threat to you. I don't want to fight you. Oftentimes, when we are in high conflict situations, we clench our fists, or we put our hands down by our side, or we fidget. And it's all this nervous way of saying, hey, I'm not comfortable right now. But putting your palms up is a way of physically reminding yourself and other people, I'm not a threat to you. I'm not here to argue with you. I'm not here to fight. I have a friend who works for prison systems. He is a chaplain for a prison, and he actually walks the yard. He walks through the prison with his palms up, because it's a universal sign that says, I'm not a threat to you. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm not here to do anything to you. I'm just here to receive, and I have nothing to hide. So having this posture with tongue down, breathing out, putting our palms up is just a really great way to say, you know what? I don't want to fight. I want to understand. I want to get this right. I want to be on the same page with you. So tongue down, breathe out, palms up. And then here's another step. Take a break. Take a break if you need it. Oftentimes, we make big errors in our conflict with other people when we force a conversation to continue longer than maybe we should. Maybe then the conversation needs to continue at that time. Sometimes, because we are stuck in these patterns and we want to be right and we want to prove our point, or we want to get our point across, we continue this conversation longer than it should go. And then we run the risk of saying really hurtful things or doing things that will cause more conflict and more escalation. It is okay to take a break. It's okay to walk away. It's okay to say, you know what? I need some time right now. I'm not in a good space to have this conversation. I've had this in my marriage. I'm sure if you are married or you have some significant relationships, you've probably had it too, where the fight just lasted a lot longer than it should have because one of you or both of you didn't want to let it go. I had this a couple months ago. I was in a conversation with my wife and it turned heated, and she said some things that triggered me. It wasn't what she said was bad. It just triggered me. And I wasn't in a good space. And so I just looked at her and I said, hey, would it be all right if I just take some time to lay down? I need to do some deep breathing. I need to take some time. I don't think this is going to go well. All things being equal, I don't think the conversation is going to go the way we want it to. So could I just have a couple of minutes? I need to take a break from this. And you know what? The break wasn't just good for me, but it was good for her too. She needed the break. I needed the break. And after a couple of minutes of breathing and a couple of minutes of reflecting, I was able to come back and we were able to finish the conversation. So learning the importance of taking that break is significant when you want to handle conflict well. And when you come back, after you've had time to relax, to maybe push that tongue down, after you've had time to breathe out, after you've taken this posture of like, hey, I'm not a threat to you. I don't need to fight you in this. And you've taken that break. There's a couple of things that you want to do to make sure that you get it right, that you get what's going on right, that you understand it right. I love what Brene Brown says. She says, I'm not here to be right. I'm not here to be right. I'm not here to be right. I'm here to get it right. I'm here to make sure I understand what this other person is saying. I don't need to prove my point. I just want to make sure that we have resolved whatever to the degree we can, this conflict that we have. And here are some ways to make sure that you get it right. Number one, you want to make sure that you have the right attitude. Do you ever have it where you're talking to somebody and you get into an argument with them and they say something that just ticks you off? Or maybe you had a bad morning or you had a bad moment and it just carried over into this conversation with this person, and you are not in the right headspace and you are not in the right heart space to talk to them, but you just continue through, and that person becomes the lightning rod to whatever problem you had going on before. Yeah, you want to be careful of that. Make sure that when you come back to that conversation, when you come back to deal with whatever conflict you have, make sure that you have the right attitude. Make sure you've had enough time to process through, like, is this person really the person I should be talking to? Is this really the right situation for me to be dealing with? Are they even the problem? Or am I bugged about the fact that my kid didn't do what I asked them to do? Or my spouse said something to me that hurt my feelings? Or I read an email and I caught it the wrong way? Or my boss did something and now this person, well, they just happen to be right in front of me. And so I'm going to take out my frustrations on them. Make sure that you have the right attitude. That's on you. That is your responsibility. It's my responsibility to make sure my attitude is in the right place when I'm going to sit down and talk with an individual, especially someone that I might be in conflict with. Make sure it's the right time. We would save ourselves a lot of grief if we made sure that it was the right time to have a conversation. In marriage counseling, oftentimes I will tell couples, do not fight after 10 o'clock at night. Unless you're third shifters and you guys are awake and ready to go, don't fight at 10 o'clock at night. It is not the right time to have that conversation. And I know the Bible says, don't let the sun go down on your anger. So many times we take that out of context and we don't understand that that means we don't want to let anger win the day. And sometimes we neglect the importance of taking some time to say, you know what? It's not the right time for us to talk. It's 10 o'clock. The best thing for us to do is say, this is serious. I love you. I'm going to go to bed because I'm tired. Let's come back to this when we're fresh. Similarly, if you are in a stressful work environment and something happens that's really serious, but you can deal with it later on in the day, because if you talk about it right now, you're probably going to have a big fight because both of you are really stressed out, then don't have the conversation at a stressful time. Wait until the day has quieted down. Write it down if you need to. Journal if you need to. Make sure you're clear on what happened, but make sure that you have the right time to address that issue. Make sure it's the right place and the right setting. Again, if you're in a chaotic, busy work environment and you're needing to deal with something and there's a bunch of people around, I'll just tell you right now, it's probably not the best place to have that conversation. Praise in public, but censure in private. Praise in public. Tell people they did a great job in front of other people, but don't criticize in front of other people, because it's going to throw that individual into a stress response and they're not going to handle it well. If you can, make sure that you have the right place. Make sure that you have a calm, quiet, reflective place. Make sure it's a place where both individuals, you and the person you're talking with or the people that you need to talk with, make sure it's in a place where they feel comfortable and safe. Whether that is in an open area that's away from people, or maybe perhaps in a closed door environment, if that's actually going to make them feel more comfortable. But make sure you have the right attitude, make sure you have the right time, and make sure you're in the right place or the right setting to have that conversation. Again, try to stay away from those busy, chaotic work environments. Make sure you're the right person to be having this conversation. Sometimes when people come to us with their frustrations, they're coming to us because they think we're the person who can solve their problems. But if you don't have the power to solve that person's problems, then you are not the right person to talk to. This happens in the workspace a lot, where people will triangulate. They'll come to you to try to get them on their side with their frustrations, and then have you go to somebody else, whether that's a boss or another coworker, to try to fix their problems for them. And they throw you into the mess of that tension. They throw you into the mess of that chaos, hoping that you'll resolve it for them. And it is okay to say, you know what? I'm not the right person to help you with this. Let me help you find the right person who can. Or you should talk to the boss about that, or talk to your boss about that, or talk to your spouse about that, or talk to your kids about that. I'm not the right person to have this conversation with you. If you've ever been in a situation where someone has come to you in frustration, expecting you to fix their problem, you know how powerless that can be and how futile it is. And so do yourself a favor, make sure you have the right attitude, make sure you have the right time, make sure you're in the right place or the right setting, and then make sure that you're the right person for them to talk to. And finally, make sure that you have the right words. Make sure that you've taken time to understand, what is this person upset about? Why are they so upset about it? And how have I listened clearly so that I can say the right words back to them? Am I clear on the words they've shared with me? Am I clearly stating my words back? I'm a huge believer in the written word in conflict. When we're in conflict, what we think, what we say, what people hear, and what they understand, they are not the same thing. And so making sure that we're clear on what it is that we're thinking, that we've written it out in a way where somebody else, maybe a friend or a trusted individual that can review it for us, is clear on what we're trying to say. Make sure that we have all of that so that when we go to that person that we're in an argument with, we go to that person that we are frustrated with, we are clearly articulating what it is that's going on. Now, I want to be clear here. Make sure you stay away from triangulating. You don't want to be the person going to somebody else saying, hey, can you believe what so-and-so did? No, make sure that you have safe people in your life that you can go to, that you can call and to say, hey, does this sound right? Can I run this by you? I did that today. I'm working through a couple of things, a couple of tense situations in my life, and I talked with some trusted people that I know are safe, that keep secrets really well. And it's like, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Can you help me think through this? And so I want to be clear on what my words are when I'm communicating to another person, when I sense that there is conflict. So just in review, tongue down, breathe out, palms up. Take a break. If you would just do one of those, you would see benefit in your conflict, in your relationships. But when you need to have a conversation, specifically one that's either in the workspace or at home with really critical relationships, make sure you have the right attitude. Make sure you've taken enough time that your head and your heart are in the right place. Make sure that you have checked your emotional baggage as much as you can at the door so you can be in the right space to have that conversation. Make sure it's the right time. Schedule it if you have to. Make sure that you put it at a time where you know you'll be at your best. make sure it's a right place. Make sure it's a right setting. It's not a chaotic environment. It's not loud. It's not noisy. And if you are talking with your spouse and the kids are running around, you may need to wait until like 8:30, 9 o'clock, or wake up a half an hour early so you guys can have time before the kids get up. But make sure that you're in the right place and the right setting to have that conversation. Make sure you're the right person. Make sure you are the right person to have that conversation. You don't have to get sucked into somebody else's mess unnecessarily. And when you have that conversation, when you need to deal with that conflict, make sure that you have the right words. Write it down if you have to. Run it by a friend that you trust. But if you can do those things, then you have a really good shot at getting it right. And we want to get it right when it comes to conflict, because when we get it right, it actually increases the relationship instead of taking away from it or making it more difficult. And so that's how we want to handle the conflict in our lives. Those are some simple strategies. If you are interested, there's going to be a little infographic with all of this information in the podcast notes. And we're going to continue on in our conversation. We're going to lean into healthy communication in our next few episodes. And we're going to learn more about what does it mean to have healthy, meaningful communication with the people in our lives, and how do we invest in people really well with our words, because communication and conflict resolution, they go hand in hand. So this is going to be a great time for us to lean in. If this has been a helpful conversation for you, we'd love for you to share it with a friend. We'd love for you to follow us on Spotify, leave us a comment through Apple and podcasts. And we would love to continue this conversation with you, maybe in the workspace. If you think this would be a helpful conversation for your business or for the people that you work with, reach out to us at chaplaincy@fearlessfollower.org, or you can check out our website, fearlesschaplaincy.org. That's all we have for you. Now we will talk with you later.